Hello, everyone. This is Molly from the Casually Molly podcast, and I just wanted to introduce you to my friends at the Natty Cat. This one is for you cool cats and kittens who can't get enough of wordplay and fur babies. The Natty Cat's natural soy candles feature inventive scent combinations in glass jars with clever kitties on the labels. Hand-purred with locally sourced natural soy wax, the Natty Cat's candles wood wicks create a cozy fireside crackling sound, perfect for curling up on the couch. Remember, for all of your candle and scented oil needs, please visit our friends at the Natty Cat either on Facebook or Instagram.
Have you ever wanted to get your shit together? Scrap it, look through the lens and capture it. But first world problems are getting you down. Disabled, salty, needing a laugh to fix that frown. Well, you can do all those things and so much more. Just grab a seat in a chair or the floor. Sit back, relax, recline. While she drops another casual line. You're tuned into Casually Molly with Molly and Bergie.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Casually Molly podcast. I am your host, Molly Ambergy. Remember, you can casually subscribe to the podcast wherever you stream your audio, or just check us out on Facebook Watch and YouTube. But now that we got that out of the way, we are going to introduce one of my favorite people, comedian Reena. The crowd goes wild. Here she is. Reena, why don't you tell us where you're at right now?
I am parked legally near Lake Tahoe on the California side.
Oh, wow.
At a market that seems to be closed probably for the season, so I'm thinking I'm fine. But if you hear some noise, that's cars. And
Okay.
yeah, my car, my house. I'm coming to you from here.
I know she's got her roommate. She's got the pine cone back there. So, you know.
Just moved in this week.
I'm laughing because she was just like, here's my roommate. It's here. I'm just like, first of all, I'm so happy to see you. I've been like watching you on Instagram. Just to give a background of how I met Reena, I actually had the lovely opportunity of being able to feature for Reena when she came to O'Fallon, Missouri. And I was so excited to meet you because I like followed you on Facebook and I was like, oh my God, she's so funny. And everybody, you know, we are based here in St. Louis and everybody here always spoke really highly of you. So when I got the opportunity to work with you, I was like, oh my gosh, even though it was in weird like pandemic circumstances, I was like, I got to be with Reena. I got it. And so I remember I went into the bathroom at the club and I remember I was like, oh, I got to clean up because like this is going to be the first time Reena's going to see me. Like I'm in my mask and everything. And then I see you just like at the sink and we both at the same time were just like, hi. It's so nice to meet because I had like such a long day. And then didn't you have something happen with your car or like what was the whole background with that?
Like, honestly, it's like, okay, like, there's been so many times doing comedy or doing like a storytelling show where I like stress out. I'm like, I don't have any stories. I'm not like a storytelling style comic.
Yeah.
But then stuff like that happens and you're like, oh my God. Okay. So
where do we begin?
it was a nightmare. I mean, the whole saga really started back in Vegas. I guess it should have stayed there, but my car started my house. I just built this bed in here last year, so my engine started making noise in Vegas, and eventually when I got to St. Louis, like, ended up having to get a whole new engine and transmission put in, which you save money on gas with a Prius, but the price of that repair, I wanted to drink gas, so yeah, they did a whole like transplant, and I picked my car up finally because it took longer than they said, of course, like the day of the shows, and the engine light had gone on, and I called the repair place. They're like, yeah, it should be fine, but let us know how it goes. And then on the way to O'Fallon, like halfway from St. Louis to O'Fallon, like my car dashboard just started lighting up, and I made it to the next exit, which was, of course, the airport. And like, I can't even express to you the feeling of haven't done comedy in months, have to headline a club that I've never been to before. The pandemic, of course, as we all are used to and prepared for.
Yeah.
Right. All that's going on. I just paid more money than I never paid for anything in my life for this car to get fixed. And I was watching an old comedy set, or not watching, oh my God, I was driving, but like, you know, I was playing one on YouTube to listen.
100.
And no, but really, like, it was actually one in St. Louis. It was one of the times that I got to do Helium there, like one of the nights I got to close out. And I was like, oh man, I was feeling like, wow, like I was good at comedy. And then the lights went off on the dashboard and my car, I got to the exit, but my car just kind of like stopped rolling. It like rolled to a stop before I could get to a proper parking place. And like, I can't describe how it feels to be like watching yourself do comedy while your life is failing, you know? Like,
oh my gosh, yes.
You've just gone through literally everything to like make it work. Like, I had so much anxiety about doing those shows, and it was such like a head game to like get in the zone for it anyway. And so to like try so hard and like pay $6,000 for a ride there, and then anyway, that happened. And then to make it even worse, okay, so because it's by the airport, you can't just like be parked there, but I couldn't, my car wouldn't move.
Right.
So a police officer came to like sit and wait with me for the tow truck.
That's nice.
And I don't know if you know about me, but I don't really like the police. I'm sure there are some good apples, but I was arrested last year, so I get high anxiety. My friends and I got pulled over. They said he was speeding. He was not. 100% was not.
Of course.
And we were right by the California border, and the cop was not even wearing a mask. Speaking of O'Fallon. A cop had to like give me a ride because you can't ride in the tow truck because of the COVID stuff.
So
a cop had to give me
that. Oh my God.
Yeah. So a cop had to give me a ride to the airport terminal, and I was kind of like scrambling to get what I needed for the weekend because I was still kind of like freaking out of like, do I go to the shows? Because I don't know, I'm not feeling so confident and strong right now. Or do I just take an Uber back to St. Louis? Like, I don't know what to do. But obviously, I'm glad it happened. It was lovely to work with you.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like you went through, like, that's why I wanted to, like, not to like highlight this traumatic experience you went through, but you went through all this trauma, and I have so much like respect for you because A, you were one of my favorite headliners to work with, but B, obviously because you and I connected, we had a great time. But also,
you were an amazing feature, and I'm not just saying that. Like, very fun to work with you too. And anyway, it's nice to see you.
So anyway, if anybody's listening, Reena and I are in love. Thank you. Why I was saying I enjoyed working with you was that after going through this whole traumatic experience, you went and like murdered each show. And in these pandemic times, you came out like a lot of comedians. Like I've listened to, like I was just talking about, I've listened to podcasts where, a lot of comedians are like, and that is a thing right now. Like, do we perform in a pandemic? What do we do? And a lot of people go, oh, I'm going to wear a hazmat suit, but I've never seen anybody do it. And then Reena, you went and you fulfilled that prophecy that like so many people on podcasts are talking about. And it was hysterical because no one was expecting it, but it was like one of the top parts of the show that everybody was, so like everybody that was walking out was like, oh my God, when you came out in that hazmat suit, like where did you come up with like that idea? Did you hear other people too? Or were you like, this is just something I want to do as a performer?
It's a layered journey of lots of reasons that weekend went how it did. And, I did, it was a rush, first of all, just to, to not let myself get in my head that I wouldn't be able to do headlining set, because it had been so long anyway. And then the hazmat suit, I'm more straight edge, I feel. Like, I really love comics. The comics that make me laugh the most are, like, the silliest weirdos.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not usually like that at all. So for me, that was really stepping out of my comfort zone. But I kind of, like, I have something I like to keep in mind, if possible, is whenever I'm doing a show, is I have this thing of, like, always try to surprise yourself when you're up there, because it's fun for you and the audience, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the hazmat suit was obviously planned, but yeah, I had a lot of hesitation about doing an indoor show, but I couldn't afford to pass up the gig. I was really deeply uncomfortable that nobody in that whole town, I mean, you can't even blame the comedy club, but nobody in that whole town was wearing a mask. You know, stupidity in a group, as a group activity, does not, it actually makes you more stupid when you're just doing the dumb thing all the other dumb people are doing. Still a great crowd, great shows. I'm not saying the audience was dumb. I'm not saying they weren't, but,
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it was still a great crowd and I had fun, but the hazmat suit also came from a place of, first of all, I'd seen a friend do it. Somebody who I really look up to.
Oh,
He's
okay.
hilarious. He did it one time in Nashville. His name's Steven Spinola, and he did it, like, early on, kind of before it was, like, even a safety idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that mine was also, you know, definitely over the top. Let's also note I wore a thong over the
You did,
hazmat
yes.
suit.
Mm-hmm.
Questionable. And so that's the thing, like, people are like, wow, that was, like, I can't believe she wore the hazmat suit. But then, like, I've had so many moments since then of thinking, like, oh no, did we freeze?
Oh, we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
I can see.
I had so many moments since then of, like, being like, there are people in O'Fallon, Missouri that watched me, like, do that. That's ridiculous.
Yes. And, like, I still remember it to this day. Like, I remember my parents were like, how did it go? And I was like, Mom, like, the headliner walked out. She had a hazmat suit on. And my mom's like, well, now I want you to get one. And I was like, maybe I will at this point. You know, that's an Italian mom for you. She's like, if I hear somebody else have it, I want you to have it now. And I'm like, okay, sounds good.
The other reason is that, I don't know if he'll listen to this podcast, but right before my weekend there, somebody had showed me that the owner of the club had commented on one of my colleagues' Facebook posts about her cleavage. And I was already really anxious about performing, not just doing a headlining set, with no practice, and not just doing a headlining set in a, let's say, more reddish hue of a purple room, more red than blue. And as a woman, and with, like, the year that we've had, that's an extra, it's something I've, like, gotten used to, but kind of don't really have a taste for anymore in general, as I feel like I have to kind of change what I want to do in order to make them accept me and make them get on board and just be comfortable. And ultimately, it doesn't matter if we agree. I love making people laugh and have fun. So I can do that, but it's harder.
Yeah.
So the owner of the club, I was the first woman to headline, and I had seen him comment on a friend of mine's cleavage online, and part of reason for wearing the hazmat suit, aside from setting an example and, like, a bargaining deal of, like, okay, you guys don't wear any masks? Well, I'm going to wear 75 masks and you'll let me keep one on. But also, I really just didn't want the owner or anybody to be able to look at my body, because this was hard enough. And honestly, conservative crowds have more of a tendency, I'm sure every crowd might think it, maybe, but conservative crowds have more of a tendency to, like, catcall a woman when she's performing and give you feedback about your body. So I just didn't want that to be an option for anybody. And I wanted to just, like, it was very liberating to just focus on telling jokes and not even have the slightest care of how I looked up there, because I couldn't wear makeup either. It was interesting show.
Yeah.
I like to get decked out. I like to dress up. So that was, like, a real different time.
Well, that's what I was saying is, like, what I love about, and maybe you can kind of explain that with, that just segue right into my next question, is that, you know, you have this personality and, like, this, like, really just bold attitude of being like, I don't care, I'm here to laugh, like, this is going to be fun. Is this something that you as a comedian always had? Was this something that you kind of found in, like, your voice later on? Tell us kind of like your backstory. Like, how did we come to Reena Com today?
What a question. Let me just tell you also, in this moment that we're talking, I literally don't know what I'm doing next. If my shows this weekend are canceled and I'm driving back to Wisconsin, or if I'm going to go to Oregon and make enough money to get through the end of the year. We're waiting to hear, it's a casino show, so we're waiting to hear back from the tribal council if they're going to go along with the governor's restrictions. So I'm a little bit just like very extra zenned out, but like like I'm sure I'm like highly anxious and agitated, but I kind of just like don't let that take over. My point of saying that is that I've being on the road has made me like super flexible and able to just kind of like roll with whatever's happening. And what brought me, I mean, every comic has like probably a backstory. Like I'm sure you and all your friends that you know in comedy have had bad things happen or mental health issues or some reason that is their like origin story for why they started doing comedy. And I know about myself that like I'm the oldest of four, and you know, we had kind of a bad family life for the whole time. No, just most of it. And like I kind of, for a lot of reasons, like being in like a mental health facility as a child and like being with young kids and like you just, I don't know, I've always had this instinct of like wanting to make sure everybody's okay and having a good time. And honestly, right now, not that, I mean, yeah, casino shows, it's all crazy, but right now I don't get nervous about performing no matter how rusty I am, because what I know is that anybody who's watching a show, especially right now, just wants to see whoever's on stage, like show them that they're okay for right now. You know, like they've got it covered, and like, I don't know how it works. If it's like a defense mechanism mixed in with, I don't know what, how humor actually like happens, but that's like my go-to. Some people are like amazingly like warm and kind, and I'm like Dorothy from Golden Girls, where it's like some of us, we don't always want to be funny, you know, we're just tall and depressed.
Right.
But
that's honest though. I feel like a lot of people, like even for me, like I know that I come off as like a very positive person, but you have to work on that for a long time. You know, like I come from a blended family and I was the youngest. So I was the only child between my two parents. And, you know, like when you are trying to kind of like figure out who you are and things like, you know, it's not that I necessarily had it like terrible, but, you know, like there's a lot of things that you learn when you have older parents, and then things that happened before you were born. So then when you start like kind of getting older, I think that's kind of how I fell into comedy, was that I had seen so much being the youngest sibling. And, you know, being in theater, it's an interesting thing that you were like a defense mechanism, like you go to humor, because that's how I was too. Like if I ever saw something I didn't like, or I was nervous about, you know, something, you know, going a certain way, like humor was just the place to find it. So I think you're actually being super honest, because a lot of times people are like, oh, you do comedy, like you must be the happiest person in the entire world. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. I think also I've had the complete opposite of that too, of like, actually very disrespectfully, a doctor, I was getting like an ultrasound on my leg for like a medical issue.
Oh, wow.
And a doctor, it's still an issue, don't even get me started. Like, but the doctor just, as soon as somebody finds out you're a comedian, it's just really frustrating because I don't have health care, so I pay for everything out of pocket. And like I've had this experience several times where as soon as they find out I do comedy, they want to talk to me about every experience they've had with comedy. And then and that's frustrating because I'm like, could we talk about my leg?
My leg, yeah.
My leg, you know, like, and then this doctor was super rude. He was saying stuff like, well, I know since you're a comedian, you probably have poor mental health, and, you know, Robin Williams, it's like, okay, you are not that's not
What?
helpful right now.
Yeah, no,
could you
not
just
at
fix
all.
my leg?
Yeah.
But yeah, other people just like, oh, tell me a joke. Like they don't understand. And I don't know, like I said, it's like you want to just like make people feel better. So even in those awkward conversations, you try to find a way to like politely get your way out of it. And this is like maybe a sad outlook on comedy, even though it's like, I think also honest,
Yeah.
that I think comedy is kind of like the height of the service industry, where it's like, I mean, there's an art to it. Not that there isn't for like service, but like, obviously there's like more of like there's an art to it, but it's also like your main objective if you're working is to like make sure they're having a good time,
Yeah, absolutely. And I see what you're saying. I don't think it's necessarily like negative. It's just that like you are like, I don't know, I don't want to say like providing a service, but like you do feel like, at least for me personally, like if I made somebody feel good, or like serve them a good time, like I'd be like, here's like funny on a platter. But it does kind of bring like that community aspect to it, which I kind of wanted to find out. You've been like I said earlier, I've been following you on Instagram. You have been doing so many outdoor shows, and your audience seems to really connect with you. Has there been, I mean, unless you like have like, you just love everywhere you've been, is there a certain place that like you've been doing as you've been traveling around the country that has really, you had a great time with the audience, you felt like they understood where you were like not coming from, but just kind of like, sometimes related to your material, or just tell us a good place that you've been to that you've been loving, because I can't cover all the places.
Yeah, there's so many, and that's like honestly something I've been struggling with is like trying to pick where to like. I was going to move to LA this year, but like, and I'm staying in Wisconsin now, and I stayed in St. Louis. Like, it's so hard to pick a permanent spot now, just because it's like I've seen so many places that I'm like, I kind of like there's good and bad everywhere, and you never know where you're going to have like that amazing like magic night. But I will say the Kansas City scene, no, it's also in Missouri, but I didn't get to do the outdoor show in St. Louis, so I can say that Chris Sear like sent me some of the pay they get or something anyway, which was really kind of him because they moved it indoors, and it's one thing to take the risk on for yourself, but on a tour I'm staying with so many people. I just
Right.
I have to be like super strict about my boundaries, and yeah, I'm literally only going in these casinos because they're paying me enough to survive. Anyway, what was the question?
Oh, so
My favorite place?
Just a favorite place, because like I said, you've just seemed to really have audience reciprocate with you. Like at least in these pictures, it looks like you're killing it with these outdoor shows, and I think that's
Oh my
really
gosh,
awesome.
well, like I've had so many pictures from me on stage that my favorite comedy pictures, and the ones that I'll absolutely share if I can, are the ones where you see the audience laughing. Like that's my jam.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a combination. I think everybody's like, not to discredit myself, like I think I'm doing well for especially being rusty, but I also think that, and I'm trying to keep it fresh, but also using stuff that I know works for the right people. But yeah, I don't know, like Kansas City, the crowds are super progressive, I feel, and generous, but also it was very cold while I was there, so I got to give them a shout out, because by the time I go up, they're like freezing, and then it turns into like, I could just see people kind of like moving towards the fire, and it made me feel, it's like they're still into it though, and it's like, that's incredible, like
Yeah.
you feel like your closer is like the bus we're all waiting for, and it's freezing out, but people are like, so yeah, that was very cool. And one of my favorite shows of the whole tour was in Denver. Ben Bryant, he's a comic in Denver. He was running, I'm sure they're shut down right now, but he was running a show at an outdoor place where it felt like a real show, and I really just like felt like a real comic again for 15 minutes. But yeah, I like really couldn't pick a favorite, because I've had probably good and bad shows in a lot of places. I would skip Delaware.
Okay. I've never been, so who knows? Maybe I will.
Skip it. A lot of coastline, but like, no, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe Biden. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know too much about it, so I can't comment as much. But like I said, I love the idea that you're using your connections. Like I saw you actually went to my hometown of Cincinnati.
Yeah, I love Oh yeah, Cincinnati was a blast. Also, oh my God, it feels like a month ago now. That one was super fun. And Wayne Memmott runs the
I know
Bombs
Wayne.
Away comedy. Yeah, and he's done, I think, like, of no shade to anybody else, but I think he's done probably the most thorough job of like just being like he's got a very good system to keep it safe and efficient and still like at whatever level it can be profitable. And yeah, he has a really good system there for sure.
Oh yeah, Wayne, I met him actually. I did a Christmas show last year in Cincinnati at Go Bananas, and Wayne was the host, and he was so like gracious and so nice. He was like, yeah, anytime you come back to Cincinnati, just let me know. And he let me do his like out of towner show, which was really cool. So when I saw you went to Cincinnati, I was like, oh my God, she's in my hometown.
Well, it must be awesome to go back there now that you've been working in St. Louis, and like it's different to like go somewhere kind of with material rather than like where you're building it up. You know, that's kind of like, I guess, the fix that got me hooked on touring. It's like, you know, it definitely slowed down my writing. Living in a city definitely, I think, pushes you to generate more content and try more new stuff, as the same people are seeing it a lot, which is, it's not like one's better than the other, but yeah, getting your stuff in front of a new crowd and like, yeah, that's why it's hard to pick a favorite, because like and that's why it works. That's what my 50 state goal was about, like to be able to say that these jokes have been tested in 50, like I know they work everywhere. Yes. It's not like appealing to this, you know, I used to write a lot more Chicago-centric jokes when I lived there, you know, so I try to just, I don't know, that's not an issue anymore. Not that anybody can really relate to what I'm doing, but...
But I love the idea that you had, like, what was the backstory? Because you were saying you're like, oh my gosh, I like do all this, you know, I'm going and doing material in different places. What made you think, like, when did you know that it was time to kind of branch out, I guess is what I'm asking. Like, when you were like, you know what, I've got this 50 state goal, this is what I'm going to do. When did you feel like in your career that you were ready?
It definitely did not make the 50 state goal until I had already gotten to like 30 or so. Okay. Like it all very much happened. Like I'm thrilled with how it's gone for the most part, but it all just kind of like one thing led to another. And next thing you know, it was like a full-time thing. And I felt like it was a better choice to get rid of my apartment, which has been, I think, a good thing this year.
Yeah.
You can't evict me. My squatter's rights are when I go to the bathroom. But on that side.
The other side that we can't see. That's okay, though.
I cover his eyes.
We had to cover the pine cone. We had to cover the roommates.
Yeah. But it definitely, to answer your question, though, it definitely just started very much like even how you're already doing this, of how, because you live in St. Louis, but you're branching out as far as whatever, like Cincinnati, but even just O'Fallon, like it's baby steps. And you just kind of slowly build this network, because I feel like each place you go gets you in touch with people like the next town over. And so, you know, it started very slowly of just doing like these little small loops of trying to string together like a few shows to make my way. Like I would get booked one good paying gig, and then just, I mean, also at first I was like spending money that I got, like stock money, when I quit Grubhub, which I probably should have stayed, but no, I definitely do not mean that.
I used to drive for Postmates, so I still have my card.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, I understand.
I have my Postmates bag. It's in the trunk, because I feel like if somebody sees that, they'll be like, oh, I'm not going to rob her. She's got a sad life. She drives Postmates.
Sorry, I'm sure that people feel that about me too, so it's okay. Except like you at least have the decency. You're just like, here's this. I'm just like in the front seat. I'm like, this is my life. This is Postmates. I'm going to Shake Shack. Here we go. It just, when I first started doing it, I almost gave like Because you know when you just are like in a rush, and I was doing it, there was like multiple weekends I was doing it on, and I had a Friday night where it's just like bing, 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 and I was so rushed, I accidentally just gave my whole Postmates bag to the person, and they were like, excuse me, ma'am. And I was like, oh, Jesus, I'm being called ma'am. This is not a good situation.
That's never a good one.
Never a good one.
Actually, Postmates was a big part of me touring starting out, though. I was doing it a lot. Like, I mean, I worked my way up to building profitable tours, but I wouldn't say that that really even started till a couple years ago. I was probably, I don't know, that's not necessarily true, but mostly breaking even and mostly just trying to get out as many places as I could and, like, save up to do these things. Or I would have to, like, get to Massachusetts for a wedding or get to Texas for a thing. So I would, instead of flying, find a way to make it about me. But plan stops every 6 hours so that, you know, I could just do shows along the way, and the way back I had to travel anyway. And that's the kind of branching out I'm talking about, of like eventually you start booking the paid gigs. So then you'd book, like, let's say you're doing a paid gig in Indiana, you just try to book stops to make a loop. And then the loops just started getting bigger, and it started turning into like, well, where do I want to go? And I would always try to, if I was going to do a loop, I mean, there's been times that I left for like a 14-day tour with like $30 in my account, and just like, I was postmating in some places, like you could do it anywhere. I once delivered coffee to the mayor of Denver. Not too bad.
What? How did that go down?
I mean, his assistant picked it up, and she was pretty rude. But yeah, just Postmates. I was just doing Postmates in Denver.
I love it. Yeah.
Or, I mean, merch. You have to have merch on the road. I mean, like, I used to only have my horse pussy buttons, and honestly, those would like get me from town to town. Just selling those for, like, people will give you like tips, gas money. And I was eating Arby's sliders every day between 2 and 5 because they were $1. And then that habit led me to become vegan, and slowly, and it's more expensive, but yeah, I mean, I've actually made, I'm going to say this. I'm not only one of the few female road comics, like, there's been, Carmen Morales used to be living out of her car for years. There's a few, Lori Kilmartin was like a major road comic. Like, there's a lot of women that have done it, but there's not like a bunch of female road dogs. And there's definitely not a bunch of road comics who like have found ways to become healthier while they're doing it.
And you're like, check. There you go.
Yeah, I quit drinking. Mostly, and it's not like a problem. It's like just like a choice.
I'm right there with you. Yes. People are like, are you okay? And I'm like, guys, I just have like slowed down a minute. I just turned 30. Could you give me a second to breathe? I appreciate it. But you feel
the only people
healthier.
The only people that have a problem with you not drinking are the people that are drinking. It's like, you know, like, I mean, obviously addiction is real, and I'm not belittling that, but like, even like my mom, like, it's when I used to be back home visiting and like have a show that night, I wasn't going to drink with the family during the day because I have a show. And they'd always be like, okay. And it's like, shouldn't you be like, oh, cool, you have your life together?
Right. It's just like, hello, I have a complete different standard for myself now. And people like should be like, good for you. But you're just like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go have this standard for me, and everybody can just, but good for you. I'm just, like I said, I'm just so impressed with everything that you're doing. Like I said, I love that you're so like, I hate to be like, true to yourself, but I do love that you know what I mean though, like you're just so true to yourself, but you know what I mean, like, all right, holla back, there we go. But I don't know, I'm just so impressed that you've been able to still continue to bring comedy even during this time. It shows a lot, what I feel like, at least it really shows a lot in the character of a person, that, you know, there are these different, it's true though. It's, you know, I understand because I'm trying to make it work with even just like my podcast and all the
You're killing it.
Doing it. Oh, thanks. Girl. There's just a lot of loving on this episode, and I am all here for it.
yes.
I love it. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you've been able to, you know, do all these outdoor shows. You're still helping the community. And what's really cool to see, because like you said earlier, you love the audience pictures, which I do too, actually. We're very similar in that regard, because you're like, this is so great. Because you love, like, what's good to know about like a good comedian, like, yes, like obviously who doesn't love a good picture of themselves, but it's always cool to see the reaction of like somebody else and like how you made them feel. And I love seeing these people like coming to outdoor shows and being like, all right, like it's been a crazy year and I need like a lot of times I'll have people tell me like, oh, it was nice to just even escape, even just for 10 minutes, you know?
I had like a show I did in Memphis one time, and they have like that big like children's hospital there, and these people came up after my show and they told me that like their kids, you know, like in the ICU, and they just came there to laugh, and like I didn't know that, but it's like you don't know why people are there. I think that I try really hard to practice like I don't know, I feel like it's more comfortable for me at this point, but like it takes the pressure off of me to remember that I'm there for them, you know, because, like it's a really, especially when you start getting like your podcast is like getting attention or anything, you know, like it's a kind of a weird head game, and not everybody handles it well when you start getting attention for doing this. So I like to just remember, especially when I'm on stage, sorry, I'm like dark now. Especially when I'm on stage, that like, oh, the light's getting dark. That's why. That, you know, it's for them and not me.
There we go. We got some lighting. We got it. It's all right. These is like the issues of the pandemic. Like literally it's like, like when I used to, especially when I would record in my room, I bought a shower curtain and I had to buy a ring light. But before I got the ring light, I had a desk lamp that I would shine. So obviously the ring light was much nicer, but the desk lamp was just, it was a hot mess. It was like very Phantom of the Opera. So, but
my ring light is fading is what's the issue here really. So it's running out.
I was about to say, you look good though. You look good.
Thank you. I'm just amazed my phone is still working, because real talk, like, yeah, all my equipment is busted, and like I'm a little bit nervous about, I'm totally in support of doing all the virtual stuff, and thank you for like having this set up, and it's, you know, awesome, but yeah, like all my equipment is bogus, and so I'm really like, even if I don't know, I'm kind of like, this weekend, like I was going to use the money to like Black Friday get myself like the equipment that I need to be able to like continue doing this stuff. Or I'll just drive back to Wisconsin. I don't know, but we'll find out hopefully tomorrow. It's like insane. I don't know what's going on.
But that's real talk. Like that, like, you know, a lot of people don't realize too, like even just for e-learning, like sometimes e-learning isn't as like available per se, just because a lot of maybe like there's families who don't own a laptop. Like one of my friends, she has a good platform. She's like a chef and everything. And she helped raise money for her daughter's school to be able to have people who like couldn't afford to have the e-learning be able to still participate in it. And there is a truth in that is an underlying truth of that, you know, when you are a working artist, like I was a theater major, I gave my life to theater for a very long time. I still dabble in it. When you give your life to something like comedy or the arts, like anything, there's a lot of things that, you know, people don't, like from the outside looking in, don't take into account. Like, especially now in these days, like you do have to like, you know, you want to try to invest in your future. Sometimes that is investing in a computer, but then a computer can be expensive, or a phone. Yeah. So that's like real talk right there. And so I understand too, because I'll like try to put money aside and be like, all right, where should I put this here? What should I do for this? And like I said, like my ring light, I used a promo code. So I got it. But it's hard. It's a definitely a weird time for sure.
Comedy has definitely taught me about like leaps of faith this year too. It's like, what do? You just have to not worry about, you have to, you know, be cautious, but also just like try, you know, just try your best. You got to try your best and keep moving.
I think that's the whole theme of 2020. Just keep moving. Like, here we are.
Yeah.
But what I want to ask you
Yeah.
too is, like I said, you are like such a good role model, and I know you like you're like probably like what, but you know, like you are a good role. Like I know because you're really like, what are you saying? What advice maybe would you give to people, especially like that are people that are starting in comedy, which I do have a lot of listeners who are like new to it and they kind of listen for different advice from people like you who are touring and working and on the road and do have the experience that you do. What advice would you tell an up and coming comedian who is looking into possibly pursuing comedy, especially during like a weird time such as right now?
I just think it's important not to like limit what that means and how that looks, and be innovative. And I mean, I have always wanted to try to do something that nobody else is doing, and there couldn't be a better time for ideas like that right now. You know, I mean, it's hard to not have open mics and things like that. It's hard to not have access to those things, or it's dangerous and fairly stupid sometimes. But also, like, that's just how much people need that outlet. And so I just want to encourage people right now to, like, channel that towards finding a way to, like, use that creative energy without needing to make those choices or asking people to make those choices. And be patient, because comedy's never going anywhere. I used to tell this to people a lot when they wanted to, you know, people talk about quitting comedy because of X, Y, Z's happening. And I used to do improv years ago. And one of like the first lessons they teach is like, you have to take care of yourself first. You have to be a person before you can do any of this stuff. And right now people need to use their energy to make sure they're taking care of themselves, make sure, you know, their families are okay, all those things. Comedy is there. It's not going anywhere. It will be there. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, like I said, find ways to be creative. Like, get on YouTube, generate something, put out something positive on the internet. Like, Lord knows it could use it. And who knows how this is all going to turn in. Like, we're going to have a whole new landscape. So, yeah, the reason I say be patient is because I quit comedy for several years.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Well, before I started stand-up, I used to do improv at like I took classes at Second City in IO and Annoyance in Chicago, and I did it around town for a while, and I got burnt out from the bars and the dudes and you know, it's just, I was young, and I needed to get my life functioning in a healthy way, which that took a lot longer. But yeah, I think we all have ups and downs, and I got back into improv, and that led its way to me getting into comedy. And then, like, after a year of getting wasted at my open mic, I decided to take it seriously, and then it slowly turned into my job. I mean, you can't direct how these things go, but you also can't force these things to happen, and especially right now, you can't push it. You can push yourself to, like, I don't know, don't even push yourself. Just be kind to yourself. You're still funny, even if you're not doing an open mic, you're still funny. And, like, yeah, comedy is just always there.
Yes.
And if anything this year has taught us is that even if you don't perform for months, you can still perform well. And I wanted to say earlier, thinking about, like, why you kill it, how you make people laugh, a lot of my jokes are, like, definitely, or at least it used to be, like, really tight wordplay. And I still have a lot of, like, one-liners and stuff like that. But I remember seeing the Comedians in Cars with Jerry Seinfeld and Gary
Comedians in
Shandling.
Cars getting coffee. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah. The episode of I don't always love Jerry Seinfeld and the things. I mean, I think he's one amazing comic, like,
Sure.
bow down. But, like, yeah, like, I still really appreciate his perspective, even if I'm like, stop complaining. No, he's actually super zen. He meditates. He's meditated for years, and it makes me want to do that more.
I've been starting to do that, and I used to talk like against it, and now I know it sounds like people are gonna be like, okay, Molly, but it's really centered me. I feel like
that's
a whole new
amazing
person. So
That's how I feel about yoga. Yeah. No, good for you. It's awesome.
We are like on the same wavelength, and I'm so happy about it.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I interrupted you. I was like,
No, I keep interrupting you. Yeah.
It's all good.
Sorry.
Oh, what?
It's like Zoom or whatever. You have to be patienter. Ugh. Okay.
I know. These freaking virtual things. Like one of these days, I'm not going to be like, hello. I'm gonna just say, I'd be like seeing Reena in person, just like the good old days. But go ahead. So you were saying you were watching Comedians in Cars.
The Gary Shandling episode, R.I.P., Jerry Seinfeld asked Gary, like, how do you, like, know when you have, like, the perfect joke? Like, how do you know when the joke is, like, finished or, I forget, like, something of, it's actually perfect that I can't remember exactly the words for him asking about the wording of a joke. And Gary Shandling just said, the words don't matter. Like, you're giving people your energy. So, like, yeah, you just got to make sure you're giving them good energy, you know? Like, you got to have jokes. Oh, yeah, you got to have jokes. But also, like, yeah, you just got to want to show them a good time. You just got to want to be there for them. And, like, yeah, I don't know. You keep working on the jokes. I don't know. That's, like, I think any artist struggles with knowing when their, like, project is finished or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm. I was just watching, so I don't know if you follow Schitt's Creek at all, the TV show.
Yeah.
And I watched the season finale, and then they had this really beautiful documentary on Netflix about like kind of how the show grew and how it was written, and how a lot of people who were watching it were like, we're so upset because like you're ending it and we love you guys. But at the same time, I do find whether you watch, I mean, I personally love the show, but what I do love about like Dan Levy and what he was saying is that sometimes like, you know, you never know, like, am I doing the right thing? Like, you know, is this going to be okay? But the way, like, you know, that, and I'm probably going to butcher what he said too. So everybody just watch it and just kind of take the theme that I'm saying right now. But he was saying, if you're a good writer and you know what your worth is, you'll know how to make something come to an end that the audience will be there with you and like be on that same page with you. And not that like
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, I didn't know it was ending, but that's so like Canadian to like have a plan.
Yes, right? Like it was so good. And I'm like tearing up. I'm like cooking some onions and I was like, it's the onions. But it was really like Dan Levy. And I just felt so touched by it because it's like, you know, especially in something like comedy, you really have to live and breathe it, at least in my opinion, to like, you know, really make something of it. And it's the same. I feel like also I have that opinion because I was a theater major and I lived and breathed theater. Sometimes I almost like forget what it's like to have fun, Reena. Like I'm just like people are like, go out and do something, like obviously pre-pandemic. And I'm just like, but what if I have to do this? Like, and I mean, maybe like that's a fault for me that I forget what maybe it's like, but you also like, you know, what I love about you too. And I had somebody on my podcast and I'm going to butcher this too, because I can't remember who said this and I'm going to know after we're done recording. But what's great about you is you live a life worth living and you make it interesting, and that comes into your work. So I don't know. I just feel like you have even if maybe you feel like sometimes you don't, at least from me, I feel like you do. So there you go.
Yeah, I really don't know what to say to that. So thank you a lot. Like, wow, that's huge. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, but it's also like a conscious choice, to like, just focus and find what makes you happy. Like, you know, just keep leaning towards finding more things that make you feel good, and definitely listen to your own voice and not to what anybody else has to say, because I mean, definitely take good, like, you know, listen on a podcast and, you know, always take good feedback. And Stuart Huff, who's like my hero, he taught me something I really appreciate, which is like, even if somebody's dumb, you listen to them because they might know something. Even if they seem dumb, you listen to them as they might know something that you need to know. And I mean, maybe they'll prove that they're just totally dumb and then you can tune out, but give them a chance because they might be there to tell you something that you're supposed to hear, you know?
Exactly. I love that. It's kind of like my life motto is people are like, I don't know, like some friends, not that I go up to people, I'm like, wow, you're so dumb. But I understand what he's, you know what I mean? That probably is like, that's my life motto. I just go up to dumb people. And I'm like, but I do get what he's saying. Yeah.
Casino audiences, like, you're all dumb, okay? Like, I know every single one of these people is brutally, like, unstoppably dumb. But, you know, if I don't get in tune with where they're at, it's going to be a really long 40 minutes.
Right. But that's kind of the beauty of it, though. You're like, all right, let's get relatable here. Let's figure it. And then eventually, I'm sure maybe you've made some really cool people or cool relationships out of it. I don't know. I've never been to a casino show, so I don't know. But who knows?
Well,
maybe one of these days.
The host, the feature, he was very, very fun and very nice, yes. And we trauma bonded over how bad the show was. So, you know, we have a new friendship. So that's positive.
Isn't it amazing when you're just in the trenches how you bond? You're just like...
Yes. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that it, like, brought me out here, and I got to, like, camp in my car on the coast for 5 days. And part of my whole mindset, and I'm sure yours too, is, like, focusing on gratitude, and especially this year, just like you just have to like practice it. You have to like remember that you are thankful for things that you do have, or outside shows that were warm and like worked, and you know. I did get to do one in a wedding barn, and that's like as close to as I'll get to one of those. That was like.
Wedding shows are always, was it a wedding or just in a wedding?
No, it was just like the venue was like this beautiful, like too pretty for comedy barn. Yeah.
Oh, I love that though. That's kind of cute. I mean, a wedding barn's always pretty, but I can understand where like, that's the thing. You're just like, oh, I'm in this like beautiful place doing comedy.
No, comedy belongs in a basement.
Well, when all of this like, pans out and I like ever get a basement, you bet you're going to be my headliner in the basement doing some comedy. I'll be like headliner of Reena Com, and it's going to be like there's the comedy attic. We're going to have the comedy basement. It's going to be great.
I hope it's like a low ceiling basement where I'm like, hey.
Be like, listen, she's had some practice, you guys. What I will ask you really quickly before we let you go, because I'm going to make you tell us everywhere we can find you. Earlier, I can't remember if it was on our recording. If it wasn't, I apologize. But earlier, Reena and I were talking, and you had mentioned you just saw a bear right before we started recording.
I mean, I've been looking out at cars, but yeah, also for bears, because I saw a fucking bear, and it scaled a fence so fast, its little brown bear fat ass, I don't know how it even got up there that fast, but oh my God, like I know they're around here, and I don't have bear spray, and I also don't have like any open food in my car, except for a protein shake, but what if I'm getting my period? Like, it's very nerve-wracking. Like, I don't know, is that real? But like, yeah, bear. So I guess my trip's coming to an end because I've seen the bear, and I think it was a little bear. Anyway, yeah, there's bears in Tahoe. It's bear country, and this car is also not fit for these roads. Like this, you need to have a four-wheel drive like SUV around here. So my little Prius is like, I just feel like people, if they see it, are like, you better get out of here, man, because like on the snow and stuff, and yeah, bears can open doors and stuff. Like,
oh, trust me, I've watched a lot of National Geographic, and I'm always like they had a whole special, I believe it was on National Geographic when I was younger, and it was about Yellowstone Park, and I was like, oh, I like nature, I'd like to go. And then I saw like these bears like opening up cars, and I remember being like 7 and going, oh, they can do that. And like my mom was like, yeah, bears can be smart sometimes. And I was like, oh, that's smart that they can open up a door? It's just, I don't know, but I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience with bears, so.
I mean, I shouldn't be so afraid of seeing a bear crossing this. Not that I'm afraid, but like, I shouldn't be as worried about bears considering how many truck stops I've slept in. You know, it's like, come on. You know,
hey,
that's a gay joke.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I love you so much. I'm so happy.
Oh, I love you too.
On. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's meet, you know, when it's, I mean, I know it's getting cold, but just know anytime you need a place to stay, you know that my home is your home. So feel free to come on back to St. Louis. I know it's not Kansas City, but come on.
No, I feel bad for That St. Louis show could have been, it had food trucks, so it could have been the best one of all, so I won't know, but yeah. Anyway, Kansas City, it was cold out, so they get points.
It's
you know?
right. I actually went to Kansas City last year for the first time, and our mutual friend Steven Taylor.
He's the best.
Steven Taylor, great person. Shout out to Steven. I just did a show recently with him as well, with Chris Sear, so a lot of name dropping right now. But it was just so great to catch up with him. But he's from Kansas City, so I mean, if every Kansas City citizen is like Steven Taylor, I mean, it's got to be a good place.
He's like the Kansas City comedy dad, and there's just like a bunch of great people there. But yeah, if you're looking me up, you can find me at formerly Fat Steven on Instagram.
I was hosting the show, and I didn't want to call him Fat Steven, but he had this cardigan on, and I was like, you can follow Chris. And then I forget Tommy Dangerfield. I was like, Cardigan Steven, and I'm your host, Molly Ambergy. And everybody was like, Cardigan Steven. I was like, sorry to, bring notice to your cardigan, but.
He and I have also trauma bonded. Like, you get a unique bond with somebody when you've done one of those shows that, the shows went well, but I think just because of COVID and everything and what I was going through, you were like, oh, okay, I can count on her being very nice and sane and regular and safe. And then you gave me a ride home. It was so nice. I'm so glad we got to hang out.
I love that you called me nice and sane. That makes me feel it's documented.
Oh my God, so
it's
so
here.
much. I'll put it in writing.
I'll put it in writing. Oh, I love it. I'm gonna be like, listen, if any doubts, I am very nice and very sane to work. But like I said, I had a great time with you. So that's why I always
me too.
Everybody's like, how was working with Reena? I'm like, she was a baller. She made it work. She's got you've got a special called Comedy that's on. You have that.
The comedy special.
Yes.
Yeah. The best place to follow me is on Instagram. I post a lot of travel pics, Facebook, whatever. And then my website is where you can find all of my merch and stuff, my book of puns, my orgasm mug, and all of my photo prints. It's at reenacalm.com.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Again, that was Reena Calm. She's a great comedian. You're going to love her. Check her out. And remember that you can always check out the Casually Molly podcast wherever you casually subscribe to your podcast. But I really appreciate your time. Last question I'm going to ask you. Oh, of course. I know. I'm like, here we go.
And
I always
quick compliment. You're really good at hosting a podcast and good at interviewing. I've done a lot of them. I'm just saying. And if anybody doesn't know that, they should. So, okay.
Oh my God. I feel so good now. I'm going to be like, oh, of course I moved the table. Sorry for editing. Until
then.
I'm sure nobody's like, you know what? It's Casually Molly. The table would, you know what? I'll be like, Charlotte takes a tumble. I'm going to start dancing and then it's going to flip over. So it's going to be great. But thank you. I appreciate it. The last question I'm going to ask you is, what are you going to casually do now that our podcast is over?
I'm going to casually drive through bear country back to my friend's beautiful place in Truckee, and I'm going to make a vegan butternut squash and tofu tahini sage lasagna.
Okay.
Because that's how I cope with the anxiety of not knowing what happens tomorrow with my life.
Oh, it's all right. Sometimes, hey, I'm Italian. Sometimes you need a good lasagna. Trust me, it's one of my favorite. If I had more time, which I used to at a certain point, but now it's a fun thing to make. So it just takes a minute. But maybe someday when you come back to St. Louis, I'll make you some lasagna. We'll do that.
Oh, don't tease me. I don't know if you know, we weren't friends at the time, and you probably didn't see this far back, but the first thing that blew up on my Facebook was when I got engaged to lasagna. So we're seeing other people, but it's real.
That sounds like the best engagement ever. So that and pizza's a slow second up there. But for me, at least, I like both. Well, we'll make it work. We'll get you back. You know what? Maybe we can reconnect you in lasagna. I can't wait.
Shout out to Pizza Head Vegan Pizza. They're really good. Get them if you're in St. Louis.
Yes, I know exactly where that is because I was right around that area. Pizza Head is really good. So shout out to them. Maybe they'll sponsor us at some point. Not sponsored, but we do love Pizza Head. Well, thank you very much, Reena. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Molly.
And I'm going to let you drive through bear country now.
Yay.
Bye, friend. Thank you.
Bye. See ya.
Yeah. It's true. lost, understood, don't even have to be explained, my nigga. Yeah. I love y'all. I love y'all. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, not sorry.
Trying to find peace, been through a lot, guess I expected too much. A cruel world tells you your best is less and it's never enough. I think I lost a couple homies, cause they ain't acting the same. Unpacking my shame while standing in the dirt on my name. A soul bruised, being abused, I kept it quiet and sunk. Nobody heard me yell for help, but I screamed at the top of my lungs. Till disappeared on a nigga, then freaky called and hung up. Started to think that if I sink, my niggas won't give a fuck. Like where my niggas when I'm homeless and trying to crash for a night. Like what my niggas when I break down crying about losing my wife. The secret things the people never seen stacking up on me, and that was picked up by the ones some say was barely my homies. I guess I'm bothered by the fact that I had to leave all I own just to find peace, and that my homies will let me do it alone. I talk to niggas every day until I got with this woman. I'm blindsided by it all, cause I never saw the shit coming. Damn, that shit hurt, I don't know what's worse, the pain or the clear this shit going. I wanted to weep, I wanted to scream, but nothing was heard but these walls. But I just left a lot of shit that never got a resolve. I love my niggas, so I'm still gonna be right there when they call. Wondering if God trying to get through to me. Mixed signals keep confusing me. They checking for your girl, but I ain't ready for them choosing me. This could've ended beautifully, could've went about it suitably, but soon you'll see the gruesome things you'll do to me. They'll shame me, and everybody cool with it. I guess they say it's hard knocks. I lost the light inside my eyes. Yeah, I was in pure shock. Imagine everything you love cruising first, then hit a hard stop. I was angry, like the whole world could suck a dick. I'm talking all cops, like why I gotta lose it all again just to regain from the fall? Like why I gotta be the chosen one? Yes, I was mad at God, mad that I lost it all again, mad that I raised another kid, mad that my woman didn't love me, mad to go through all this shit, mad that I needed a place to stay, mad that nobody had shit to say, mad that my Christmas was some shit, mad that my homies was MIA. Thank you for truth, for giving me peace. Thank you for Kristen and GA. Thank you for Cornbread and Alan Gates. Thank you for Christian with a K. Thank you for everyone who listened and let me cry on their shoulder. Thank you for the people who pushed me forward when I said it was over. Fuck how things go when they don't want your own fam to